Hello all, in this video we are going to discuss right of use assert and the initial measurement of right of use assert. So basically right of use assert is initially recognized at cost. So like every asset, like let's say that you're purchasing a machine or you're purchasing a building, initially you will measure it at cost. And the initial cost of the right of use asset comprises of the amount of initial measurement of the lease liability. This amount is nothing but the amount that we have calculated here. So the calculation of the initial measurement of right of use asset starts with the amount of lease liability over here. So you take the lease liability and you add any lease payments that are made at or before the commencement date. So if you're making any advance payment, that should be a part of this right of use asset. And any initial direct cost, it will be given directly in the question, so don't break your head over this. If any initial direct costs are there, that will also be added to the right of use asset, and the estimated cost of removing or dismantling the underlying asset as per the conditions of the lease. So if there are any costs related to dismantling or removing the asset, that is any decommission cost is there, and that should also be a part of this right of use asset. So let's look at this illustration. Sadio leases a machine over a 5-year lease term from BH from 1st December 2015. So your Sadio is the lessee and BH is the lessor. Rent payment of 75,000 are made in advance on 1st December each year, and the first installment has just been paid. This is very important. See here, the first installment has just been paid. So the first 75,000 has been paid today itself. That is on 1st December 2015 itself, the first installment has been paid. So this is nothing but the advance payment, lease payment made at or before the commencement date. So you should add this to the lease liability. So 75,000 should be added to the lease liability. And the useful life of the asset is 7 years. A lease arrangement fee of 1,500 was incurred by Sadio. So this lease arrangement fee is nothing but a direct cost. So here any initial direct cost. So this lease arrangement fee is a direct cost, and this 1,500 should also be added to the lease liability. And the rate implicit on the lease cannot be readily determined, but the incremental borrowing cost, incremental borrowing for Sadio is 8%, and ownership of the asset is retained by the lessor at the end of the lease term. So this is not important for the calculation of amount of the right of use asset. So here is the solution. So you have to begin with the lease liability. So right of use asset calculation starts with lease liability. So this 248,409 is nothing but the amount that we have calculated here above, 248,409.5. And it starts with the lease liability, and you need to add any direct cost, that is 1,500. Here the lease arrangement fee is added to the lease liability, and payment made at the time of commencement. So 75,000 here we have made it. So the rental payment of 75,000 are made in advance on 1st December, and each year, and the first payment has just been paid. So you have paid 75,000 as a down payment. The advance amount should also be added to the lease liability. So the total right of use asset will be 324,909.5. The journal entry that you need to pass at the end of the first year is, while entering into the lease contract, you need to pass this journal entry, that is right of use asset. You have to debit this because this is an asset, and any increase in asset should be debited. So 324,909 increase in asset is debited, and lease liability should be credited because any increase in liability should also be credited. That is 248,409 is the lease liability. You have credited it, and cash should be credited 76,500. This is nothing but the sum of these two, the payment at the time of commencement and the direct cost. So add these two, that is 76,500, and this should be credited because cash is going out, right? Debit what comes in, credit what goes out. That's what the golden rule says. So cash should be credited for 76,500.